Have you ever looked at an old photograph and felt that something was not quite right? Today, we are exploring one of the most disturbing photographic mysteries from the early 1900s. It is a seemingly normal portrait of a young woman that has confused historians, collectors, and people interested in the paranormal for many years. What starts as a simple vintage picture slowly shows layers of mystery that no one has been able to explain completely. If you like this type of content, please leave a like. It really helps the channel grow. The antique shop on Maple Street in Salem, Massachusetts, had been part of the town for more than 40 years. Its owner, Robert Chen, had dealt with thousands of items over the years: furniture, jewelry, books, and many photographs. Most were ordinary, dusty pieces from lives long forgotten. In March 2019, however, something unusual came in. An estate sale from the old Whitmore mansion brought several boxes of mixed belongings. The mansion, built in 1885, had stood empty for 3 years after the last family member died without children. While going through worn linens and dull silverware, Robert found a leather folder holding about 30 photographs from the early 1900s. At first, he looked through them without much interest. Family pictures, outdoor scenes, children playing in old-fashioned gardens, the usual things. Then he came to the photograph that made him pause. It was a formal portrait of a young woman, probably in her early 20s, sitting against a plain background. The picture quality was very good for that time, clearly taken by a professional in what looked like a studio. She wore a high-necked white blouse with fine lace details. Her dark hair was styled in the popular Gibson girl way around 1910. Her face looked calm, almost thoughtful, and her dark eyes seemed to stare straight through the camera. Everything in the photograph seemed completely normal for the period, except for a strange feeling of unease that Robert could not shake off. He put it aside and kept working, but all day he kept coming back to it. There was something about the picture that pulled him in, even though he could not say why. That evening, he shared the photograph on his shop's social media page with a simple note: "Beautiful portrait from around 1910. Does anyone know the photography studio or the person?" The response came fast and strong. Within hours, the post had been shared hundreds of times. Comments poured in, but they were not about naming the woman or the studio. Instead, people kept asking the same thing: what was she wearing around her neck? Robert looked at the photograph again, this time using a magnifying glass. Around the woman's neck was a thin chain, hardly noticeable against the white lace of her blouse. Hanging from it was a small pendant, and as he looked closer, he felt chills on his skin. The pendant looked round, made of what seemed like old silver or pewter. What caught everyone's eye was the design carved into it. The symbol did not look like any usual Victorian jewelry pattern. It appeared like a wheel or compass with uneven lines coming out from the center and odd markings or letters around the outside edge. Robert's daughter Emily, a graduate student in American history at Boston University, came that weekend to see the photograph herself. She brought tools from the university's digital imaging lab, high-resolution scanners and photo improvement software used for old documents. When they enlarged and sharpened the image, the details became clearer and more troubling. The symbol did not seem like decorative jewelry anymore. The markings around the edge looked purposeful, maybe letters or signs from an unknown writing system. The lines were uneven, and in some spots they formed smaller shapes inside the bigger design. Emily wrote everything down carefully. She also took a picture of the back of the original print, where faint pencil writing said, June 1910, Boston. There was no photographer's stamp, no studio mark, only those short initials and the date. Over the next weeks, the photograph spread quickly online. Paranormal sites shared the story, and amateur historians argued about its meaning in forums. Some said the symbol matched images from different cults, others thought it was just strange jewelry made by an unknown maker. Still, no one could name the woman, explain the symbol, or figure out why such an odd object would be worn so clearly in a formal portrait. Dr. Margaret Ashford, who had spent 30 years studying American Victorian and Edwardian photography at the Smithsonian Institution, first saw the image when a colleague sent it to her. She was doubtful at first. The internet had many fake stories and wrong pictures, but her professional interest won out. She asked Robert Chen for high-resolution scans. What she saw next made the mystery even deeper. Dr. Ashford's research surprised her. The photograph was real, the paper type, the albumen print method, and the shades matched professional portraits from 1908 to 1912. There were no signs of modern changes or copies. This was truly a piece of early 20th century history. She started carefully, beginning with the pencil note on the back, June 1910, Boston. She made a list of photography studios working in Boston then and checked them against old archives and collections. Most big studios from that time had special stamps or raised marks on their prints, so the lack of one was unusual but possible. Smaller shops or traveling photographers often did not mark their work, especially if the customer took the print right away. The initials A presented another question. Were they the woman's initials, the photographer's, or someone else's? Dr. Ashford looked at census records, city lists, and newspaper files from 1910, searching for young women with those initials who matched the age and look of the subject. She found many possibilities: Emma Harrison, a schoolteacher; Elizabeth Hughes, a merchant's daughter; Evelyn Hammond, a factory worker. Without more details, naming the subject seemed impossible. Meanwhile, the pendant symbol became the main focus. Dr. Ashford talked to experts in religion, anthropology, and art history, sending clear images to specialists in Victorian jewelry and decorative items. Professor David Winters from Yale's Department of Religious Studies looked at the improved pictures closely. "It is not any common religious symbol I know," he said over a video call. "The round shape with lines coming out appears in different cultures, sun symbols, wheel designs, compasses, but these exact markings around the edge, I cannot identify them." He studied the screen. The unevenness suggests it was made by hand, probably engraved specially. Someone put a lot of work into creating this piece. Next, Dr. Ashford reached out to experts in occult history. This was difficult. Some were serious scholars, while others were excited amateurs who sometimes saw meaning where there was none. A few trusted researchers gave interesting thoughts. Dr. Sarah Blackwell, an expert in 19th and early 20th century American spiritualism and occult practices, said the time was full of mystical groups. The late Victorian and Edwardian years saw huge interest in spiritualism, theosophy, secret societies, and hidden traditions. Boston, she explained, was a center for such things. Groups ranged from Hermetic orders and Masonic lodges to many smaller ones. She looked at the symbol carefully, but could not match it exactly to any known group or practice. It has parts from several symbolic systems, Hermetic, alchemical, maybe influenced by ritual magic, but it is not a perfect fit for anything in my studies. The mystery grew when Dr. Ashford used special imaging on the photograph. With infrared light, faint markings appeared on the background behind the woman, symbols completely hidden to normal eyes. They looked like the markings on the pendant, drawn or painted on the studio backdrop. But why add them? And why hide them from regular view? At the same time, Robert Chen followed the trail of the Whitmore mansion. The house's history was well recorded in Salem's archives, a place linked to wealth and unusual behavior. Yet some parts of its past hinted at more than just family matters. The photograph was only the start of uncovering a story that might go far beyond normal early 20th century Boston life. The pieces began to come together for Dr. Ashford, and the results were frightening. Diary entries from Catherine Morrison gave a rare view of a young woman named Ellen Hartley, whose sudden disappearance went mostly unnoticed outside her close circle. The August entry showed that Ellen simply vanished, leaving no new address or hint. Catherine's October note added more worry. A strange, well-dressed man around 40 had come to the shop asking about Ellen, showing a photograph of her with the pendant. His odd comment, "Perhaps that's for the best," and the fear it caused in Catherine suggested knowledge of something far from normal. Finally, the December 12 entry confirmed the worst fear. Catherine had read about an unidentified woman's body found in Boston Harbor. The timing matched Ellen's disappearance closely. The diary showed Catherine's concern that the victim might be her friend. The police then had no leads. The pendant described in each entry haunted Catherine's dreams, an ominous sign connecting these events. Dr. Ashford quickly checked newspaper files from late 1910. Sure enough, the Boston Globe on December 9th reported, "Body of young woman found in harbor. Police seek identity. Victim in her 20s, dark hair, slender build. No identification at the scene. The details fit Ellen Hartley closely." There were no follow-up stories naming her, and no suspects reported, leaving the case unsolved. The photograph, the pendant, and the diary suggested that Ellen Hartley's disappearance, possibly her death, was tied to something bigger than regular crime. Dr. Ashford started to think the pendant was not just jewelry, but a sign, a symbol with meaning lost to time, linked to Ellen's fate. The fact that the unknown man appeared months before the body was found hinted at a network or knowledge of hidden forces that Dr. Ashford was only starting to see. Edmund Whitmore's journal entry gave a chilling background to everything Dr. Ashford found. The symbol on Ellen Hartley's pendant was not random. It was part of an old tradition that Edmund had met during his travels. The Brotherhood of the Eternal Cycle he mentioned sounded like a secret mystical group full of ideas about change and continuation. The P. Ray's wheel of transformation suggested initiation or growth, maybe of mind, spirit, or something stranger. Dr. Ashford now wondered, had Edmund just collected information and objects, or had he helped start or keep a network in Boston? The letters to Elvie hinted at planning and secrecy, talks of initiations, the work and mentions of both success and tragedy. The hidden warning about Ellen: she served the work faithfully, but her fate reminds us that understanding requires sacrifice, suggested her disappearance might be directly connected to this hidden group. Further, the timing fit well. Ellen vanished in mid-1910. Edmund had been writing to Elvie about the work at the same time, and the mysterious photograph with her wearing the pendant appeared soon after. The idea of a network across several cities grew stronger: Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Providence, with similar photographs around the same period. The group's purpose stayed unclear, but the pattern pointed to initiation rituals, membership symbols, and possibly experiments with knowledge or practices beyond normal understanding. Dr. Ashford realized she was facing something much larger than one unsolved disappearance or strange object. The network might have affected or watched many people over years, leaving clues only careful historians could find. And at the center seemed to be that same puzzling symbol, the key to the Brotherhood's goal and perhaps the fate of people like Ellen. Whether Edmund Whitmore started a new group or joined an old one remained unknown. His travel journal had even more troubling parts. In a May 1898 entry, Edmund wrote that he joined a ceremony in catacombs under an old quarter. What he saw, he said, challenged everything he believed about human awareness. When properly called, the symbol seemed to change perception. Members claimed it opened doorways that were not physical but in the mind. Edmund wrote that he felt driven to learn more. A later entry from September 1899 showed growing worry. Edmund noted he was starting to see why this knowledge had stayed hidden for centuries. The changes he saw in long-time members were deep, but not always good. Some lost touch with normal life completely, while others spoke of visions that followed them, yet kept going with their practices, pulled by forces. Edmund said he was only beginning to understand. Dr. Ashford photographed every page of the journal, her hands shaking a little as she recorded Edmund's path into whatever world he had found. The last entry, from February 1900, was short. Edmund wrote he would return to America the next day. He carried the knowledge with him, but hoped he had the wisdom to use it right. The symbol, he wrote, would come with him whether he wanted it or not. Dr. Ashford hired a genealogy expert to trace Ellen Hartley's family. Records showed Ellen was born in 1888 in Worcester, Massachusetts. Her parents died in a factory fire when she was 16. She moved to Boston in 1906, worked different jobs, and finally settled at the dress shop where Catherine Morrison knew her. No death record for Ellen Hartley existed in Massachusetts after June 1910. She disappeared completely from official papers. The expert found another detail. Ellen had a younger brother, Thomas, who joined the army in 1917. His service record said he listed no living relatives. By then, whatever happened to Len? Her brother thought she was gone. More research showed Thomas Hartley kept a small box of personal items that stayed with his family. When contacted, Thomas's great-grandson agreed to let Dr. Ashford look inside. It held letters, military medals, and one photograph of Ellen as a teenager, taken before she went to Boston. She smiled naturally at the camera. There was also a sealed envelope marked not to open. Thomas's great-grandson said the box had been passed down with strict orders to keep the envelope closed, though no reason was ever given. After careful talk and with proper legal steps, they opened it. Inside was a letter from Thomas Hartley dated 1954. It began, "My sister Nena disappeared in 1910. The police said she probably ran away or had an accident, but I knew better. Before she vanished, she had changed. She talked about hidden truths, transformation of consciousness, and a brotherhood that would unlock her potential. In July 1910, I got a letter from a man who would not give his name. He said Ellen had crossed over, and I should stop searching for her. He included a photograph of her wearing a pendant with a strange symbol. He claimed she had reached what she wanted, but the price was everything she had been before. I searched for years, and found others who lost family members the same way. Young people joined a group, wore that symbol, and then disappeared. Most families got no answers. In 1923, I met an old man in Providence who said he was a former member of what he called the Cycle. He was dying and wanted to confess. He said the group promised enlightenment through meditation, ritual, and studying consciousness, but it went too far. Some lost themselves in the change. Some died, others became something else. He said Ellen was one who went all the way, though he would not say what that meant. I do not know if my sister is alive or dead. I do not know if what the old man said was true or the words of a guilty man, but I know she is gone, and that symbol took her from me. I kept her photograph as a warning. The world is full of people who promise hidden knowledge and change. Some promises come with a high price. No one should pay it. The letter was signed Thomas Hartley. Dr. Ashford sat in her office late at night, reading Thomas's letter again and again. She checked it against everything she had found. The pieces made a very troubling picture, though the full truth stayed just out of reach. The image stayed frustratingly unclear. In April 2020, Dr. Ashford got an unexpected email from a man named Peter Hartley in Chicago. He had seen stories about the photograph and noticed the last name. "I believe Nena Hartley might be my great-great-aunt," he wrote. "My grandfather rarely talked about his family, but he once mentioned an aunt who went missing in Boston, and the family never found out what happened." Peter shared what little he knew. Family stories suggested Ellen had been with strange people, and after she disappeared, her brother Thomas refused to talk about her. Eventually, the family stopped saying her name at all, as if speaking it might bring back whatever took her. But Peter had one more detail. His grandfather, in old age and maybe not thinking clearly, mentioned that Thomas had seen someone in 1947, a woman who looked very much like Ellen, though she would have been almost 60 then. She was in New York, he said, and when Thomas went to her, she looked at him without recognition and walked away. Thomas followed her to a building in Greenwich Village, but inside, no one matching her description was there. The people said no one like that lived there. Thomas told himself it could not be Ellen, just someone who looked like her, his sadness playing tricks. Yet Peter's grandfather always wondered if it was Ellen. What happened to her in those 37 years, and why would she not know her own brother? Dr. Ashford checked further. She found records of a building in Greenwich Village that held different artistic and philosophical groups in the 1940s. One group called themselves the New Cycle and met there from 1945 to 1949. Newspaper stories described them as unusual thinkers, interested in consciousness and metaphysics. The group ended in 1949, after a member died under strange conditions during what others called a meditation session. Police looked into it but found no crime. The death was called accidental, though the details were never clear. After that, the group broke up and left no more public records. Dr. Ashford found one photograph from a 1947 newspaper article about alternative spiritual groups in New York. The unclear picture showed a group leaving a building, possibly the Greenwich Village one. In the background, hard to see, was a woman whose shape and way of standing looked very like Ellen Hartley's 1910 portrait. It was impossible to be sure. The picture was poor, the angle bad, the distance far. Yet the likeness was enough for Dr. Ashford to wonder if Thomas had really seen his sister that day in 1947, changed by years of whatever practices the group followed, living a life so far from normal that she could not even recognize her own brother. Dr. Ashford put everything into a detailed report over 200 pages long. The evidence pointed to Ellen Hartley and others being part of an organization or movement in early 20th century America, marked by the symbol they wore. Edmund Whitmore was linked to this group, probably as a founder or important member, after bringing ideas from his travels. The group seemed to practice some kind of exploration of consciousness, meditation, ritual, and study of changed states. For some members, the practices caused deep mental shifts. Ellen Hartley disappeared in the summer of 1910, maybe by choice, maybe not. Her fate may have been part of a bigger pattern with other young people who looked for change and found something much more unsettling than expected. The group apparently stopped or went more hidden after 1912, perhaps because of attention from authorities or because of sad events like Ellen's disappearance. But it may have come back under different names, like the New Cycle in the 1940s, and possibly other forms that left no trace. Big questions stayed without answers. What did the group really do in their practices? What was the work talked about in the letters? Was the transformation they wanted mental, spiritual, or something else? Did Ellen Hartley die in 1910, or did she live for decades as a completely different person, unable or unwilling to go back to her old life? And most haunting, what did the symbol really mean? Was it just a sign of belonging, or did it hold deeper power that the members believed could change awareness and reality? Dr. Ashford shared her findings at a conference on American occult history in late 2020. The reaction was mixed. Some scholars praised her careful work and clear records. Others criticized her for taking fringe ideas and conspiracy thoughts seriously. After the talk, one older professor came to her quietly. He was retired from Brown University and knew about religious movements. "I knew someone once," he started, voice low. "Back in the 1960s, an old woman, must have been 80 or more. She lived near the university and kept to herself. I was a graduate student, and we talked sometimes. She had a very unusual view of consciousness. She spoke about it as if she had experienced things no one else had." He stopped, choosing his words. "One day, I noticed she wore a pendant under her clothes. It slipped out once when she reached for something. I only saw it for a second, but it had a symbol I had never seen before, circular with uneven spokes, strange markings. When I asked about it, she hid it and changed the topic. After that, she stayed away from me. A few months later, I heard she died. No family, no funeral. The landlord cleaned her place and found almost nothing, as if she had lived there for years but left no mark." "Did you ever learn her name?" Dr. Ashford asked, voice soft. "The landlord called her Miss Hartley," the professor answered. "I never knew her first name." Dr. Ashford checked Providence, Rhode Island, near Brown University. She found death records from 1969 for an Ellen Nenna Hartley, age about 85. No known relatives. Died of natural causes. Burial in an unmarked grave in a city cemetery. If this was the same Ellen Hartley, the dates fit almost exactly. She had lived to old age, carrying her secrets and a symbol that shaped her life. She had survived whatever change the group offered, but at the cost of everything else: family, identity, connection to the world she once knew. Or maybe it was just another Ellen Nenna Hartley, and Dr. Ashford was seeing patterns where only chance existed. The uncertainty was frustrating and somehow right. Some mysteries do not get solved, not because the proof is missing, but because the truth is so far from normal understanding that even when we see it, we cannot fully understand what we are looking at. The photograph still hangs in Robert Chen's antique shop in Salem, now kept safe behind high-quality glass. It has become a place people visit for those interested in historical puzzles and strange events. Robert has had offers to buy it, some large, but he says no. "It belongs here," he tells visitors. "It's part of a story that needs to be remembered, even if we do not fully understand it." The shop itself has changed since the photograph went viral. Robert made a small display area around the picture. He created a show with copies of the documents Dr. Ashford found, background on early 20th century America, and details about the search for Ellen Hartley. He presents it as an open question, not firm answers. Visitors come often, pulled by the mystery and the uneasy feeling of the image. Some say they feel uncomfortable looking at it too long, though they cannot explain why. Objectively, the photograph is just a portrait of a young woman, well-made, the subject nice-looking, nothing clearly scary. Yet something about Ellen's expression, the way she holds her shoulders, the way her dark eyes seem to look not at the camera but beyond it, creates a deep sense of unease. It is as if she knew exactly what was coming and accepted it fully. Some visitors claim they see extra details in the picture that were not there before. A woman from Connecticut said she could make out faint writing in the background, though better imaging showed nothing. A man from New Hampshire said the symbol on the necklace looked more detailed than the photograph allowed, as if his mind was adding things that were not real. Dr. Ashford keeps her research files at the Smithsonian. Though she has moved to other work, the Ellen Hartley case remains her best-known project, mentioned in many books and articles about American mysteries. She sometimes gets new tips or information from people claiming family ties to the case. Most leads go nowhere, but a few add interesting bits. In 2021, a woman in Oregon contacted her about her grandmother, who was part of a consciousness group in San Francisco in the 1930s. The grandmother wore a pendant with a circular symbol until she died in 1982. After her death, the family searched everywhere but could not find the pendant. It had simply disappeared,